Okay, so urban legends. I'm sure you've heard a few of them throughout your life, and there's no tangible way to prove their overall validity, or is there? Anyways, in this video, I thought it would be fun to look over a few NFL urban legends ranging from obscure to, absolutely nonsensical ones, but the first legend we're gonna cover is a relatively well-known one, and that's Donovan McNabb's famous regurgitation in Super Bowl 39. So Donovan McNabb was drafted back in 1999 and famously received enough hate from the merciful Philadelphia fans to make his mom cry on draft day. But it turned out that the Eagles stumbled into taking the only quarterback in the top 3 of that draft that wasn't a historic bust, and Donovan McNabb would later become one of the faces of the 2000s Eagles. Now, from 2000 to 2003, the Eagles would win at least 11 games in every season, and even lost 3 conference championship games in a row, so they had talent, they just needed like one more piece to get over the hump. And in 2004, they got a piece alright, as they brought in the biggest head case at wide second biggest head case at wide receiver ever in Terrell Owens, and in combination with McNabb and an impenetrable defense, the Eagles made it all the way to the Super Bowl. So this set the stage for Super Bowl 39 between the Eagles and Patriots, one team obviously being completely new to this atmosphere, and the other, well, this was not their first rodeo. And it showed late down the stretch, as in the fourth quarter, Tom Brady's overwhelming masculinity was just too much to overcome, and the Patriots won their second Super Bowl ring in a row. But legend has it that early in the fourth quarter, right before Donovan McNabb threw a back-breaking interception to change the tide of the momentum for good, he allegedly leaned over in a huddle and emptied out every last morsel of matter in his stomach. So this is where things get real hairy, so please bear with me. Now, on one side of things, this game took place in the year of 2004, so cameras were basically everywhere. And come on, there's gotta be at least one picture on the internet of McNabb doing the deed, right? Well, just by doing a quick Google search, you can see that no such image exists. Just vile videos of McNabb barfing in another game against the Buccaneers, which, trust me, you do not want to see. But what we do have is footage of McNabb coughing and being noticeably winded on the field, as well as primary reports from players saying that McNabb was barely able to get plays out of his mouth because he was so tired, and even guys like Terrell Owens saying McNabb could have very likely been hungover from a night out before the game, and most famously saying, "I wasn't the one who was tired in the Super Bowl." And throughout the game, even McNabb himself admitted to being noticeably winded and gassed, so it's not completely out of the realm of possibility that he just had to relieve himself for a split second. Except the biggest issue here is that Donovan McNabb himself has been very public that he did not vomit during the Super Bowl, but with all the evidence against him, maybe he's hiding something under that musty ass jersey. But another urban legend that is, I don't know, 10 times as ludicrous as the latter is the legend of the real reason why the Immaculate Reception was called the way it was. So even if you don't know a single thing about football, I'm sure you've seen this one special play numerous times before, and that's for good reason, because before or since then, this play has never been replicated or anything close to it because it's just not possible. Well, maybe it should have been impossible, because this urban legend states that the reason this play was upheld was primarily because the actual referees on the football field were seriously concerned for their own personal safety. So let's see if this is true, as leading up to this 1972 AFC divisional game, the Steelers were actually regarded as an awfully run franchise and one with a team history comparable to like the modern day Browns, and nobody wants that title. But in this season, the Steelers looked like they might have something brewing, because led by a young Joe Green, Terry Bradshaw, and Franco Harris, the Steelers had their first winning season since 1963, and there was serious expectations for this team for the first time in what felt like forever. So as Franco Harris runs into the end zone and the field gets coated with rabid Steelers fans, referee Fred Swearingen goes over to a telephone station and makes a call. And like in the McNabb story, this becomes a game of he said, she said, because we have so many different stories about what this phone call could have possibly been about. Now, it is widely agreed that Swearingen spoke to NFL executive Art McNally, but about what is still a mystery. Some sources would die on the hill that McNally watched a replay and gave him the green light to call it a touchdown, whereas other people, like Raiders Pro Bowl safety George Atkinson, claims that during the actual game, he walked over to hear what the officials were talking about and said they were concerned about security. And I mean, he even says I heard it with my own ears, so he must be telling the truth. Then you even have Steelers chairman Dan Rooney claiming that Art McNally screamed at the official for even thinking about calling him and said to call what he saw on the field, and seemed to just rush things a little too hastily. And finally, you even have the NFL executive himself saying that the reason Swearingen called was that two of his men had ruled different outcomes of the play, and he needed verification of the rules. Now, okay, that's all cool and all, but if this recollection is the true one, then that would mean this snowballs into an even more messy situation. Because back in the 1970s, if the ball had been deflected by another offensive player, then it could not have been caught by the same team, and the officials didn't seem to be watching whether the ball hit Raiders safety Jack Tatum or Steelers fullback John Fuqua. And it gets even blurrier when you have the actual intended receiver in Fuqua saying things like no comment when asked whether the ball hit him or not. Real helpful, dude, thanks. So, as the referees discussed the play together, the urban legend that the hostile crowd of Pittsburgh was the deciding factor isn't completely outrageous, as there are confirmed cases of Steelers fans literally beating up players just so they couldn't play against Pittsburgh. So it's fair to say that if the referees reversed that call, they probably would have had like a tribal spear thrown at them or something immediately. But the question still remains, did the referees make that phone call for primarily safety reasons? Well, as a Raiders fan, I have my answers, but another urban legend that will definitely blow your mind seems straight up incomprehensible to the human brain, and that is the story of the greatest individual football performance ever, the mythical 17-sack game from Norm Wiley. Okay, first of all, who the hell is Norm Wiley? I'm sure there's like a few of you who just went straight down to the comments to type a whole ass paragraph on him, but for the majority of us who don't know who Norm Wiley was, he was a very solid player for some bad Eagles teams in the 1950s, making 2 Pro Bowls and had an All-Pro selection in 1954. But it was during the 1952 season, in a Week 5 game against the New York Giants, where Norm Wiley allegedly had the game of anyone's career. 17 sacks. 17 sacks in one game by one man. There have literally only been a handful of 17+ sack seasons, and you're trying to tell me that this guy got 17 in a game? Well, let's lead on the side of optimism here. A Philadelphian writer, Hugh Brown, who was actually at the game, said that Wiley dumped Giants quarterback Charlie Connerly 17 times, and even claims there was a sequence where Wiley got 11 sacks on consecutive plays. Yeah, okay, dude. But to further bolster this outlandish stat line, after the game, the Eagles players were given $10 for each hit on the quarterback, which, you know, was completely illegal. But after the game, Norm Wiley was supposedly given an envelope that contained $170 inside of it, which equals 17 sacks. However, there are some different perspectives about this game, and probably some unbiased ones, as known sports writer Paul Zimmerman was also at the game and luckily was keeping a stat sheet, and by the game's end, he credited Norm with 8 sacks and the Eagles with 14 as a whole. So one of those two guys is just straight up lying to us. But I mean, those are just two different men's opinions, and you're entitled to believe whatever you want. But anyway, if you enjoyed this video, then like and comment, because it really helps the channel and the algorithm a lot. And if you like this video for some weird reason, then consider subscribing if you think I've earned it and you want to come back for more videos just like this one. Anyways, until next time.